was so great. I really love how you are kind of being a little creative, hopping on the camera on the fly. That's awesome. I love that. And I think Amna Ijaz, I think that you were the
Yeah. Hi, my name is Amna. I'm a alumni from UTD. I graduated with my degree in design and production from ETech. I'm looking for a job since I'm interested in building a career in web design. I'm looking for a job in that field. So, awesome.
And I did want to just let you all know, I don't know if you are all aware of what ATech is. So ATech is one of our majors in the Arts and Humanities and Technology School. So Arts, Technology, and Emerging Communications is what that stands for.
Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Claire, and I'm a sophomore and I'm in the ATech department, and I'm focusing in animation, but I have an interest in UX design. And when I got the email for the workshop, and I was really interested in, I guess, just working on my portfolio and making it better. Thank you.
I love it. Anyone else, real quick? Okay, so I see one person in the chat, and you're welcome to use the chat. This is how we'll handle the chat. So we have Samar. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, or it's pronounced Summer. That was actually supposed to be my first name at one point. I'm a freshman in ATech, and I'm kind of just here to listen and absorb information. I do web design as a hobby right now, so my UX experience is pretty limited. Oh, so lovely to have you here. All right. So anyone else? Last call. Last call for intros. This is a little cohort. We got Srikar, who's yeah. Sam, you want to read that one?
Sure. We've got, hello, I am Benjamin, and I'm in the MFA program at ATech. Cool. And my thing is freezing, so my chat is just shut on me. So can you read this one? Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got Srikar, I think. I'm a grad student in the Genzel School of Management. Awesome. I have a background in management consulting, and I'm trying to pivot towards product management. Oh, we got a product person here, Sam.
Yay.
Not just design. I'm here to gather information to understand the UX part. So I'm just going to say it. Srikar is going to be the person that I would like is on my short list in the future as far as partnering with, because if this is a product person wanting to figure out how we do what we do, this is going to be a really great partner. Right?
Yep. Yeah. We work extremely close with our product teams through our companies. So they help manage everything on the technical side. So all of our dev teams, thinking about like the technical logic that goes into each one of our designs that we're handing off. A product person is like your best friend, your two peas in a pod, especially through our company. So that's very exciting.
Awesome. We got Pallavi. Pallavi's raising her hand or hit.
Hi. Yeah, can I go next?
Yeah, please, all means.
Okay. So, hi everyone. I am from my final semester from GSOM. I'm doing MSITM, and I have a previous 5-year experience as a front end, or you can say a full stack developer. But I am also kind of driving towards product management. I have taken courses in that same field where I have studied digital project management. They'll teach you about a life cycle of a product. And this semester, I'm doing one UX experience where they'll teach you why a certain UX is and what are the factors you need to take care when you are designing a UX. So yeah, I thought that this is a very good place where I can know how to build my portfolio when at the behind I'm working on the skills to develop for UX or UI specialist. So yeah, that's
Awesome.
about me.
Love it. Okay, so everyone who was able to provide their intro and kind of lean in and advocate for yourself, high five yourself. You did that, like one of the most important things. You have basically introed yourself and started to brand yourself in this community, in this market. And that actually, believe it or not, is more important than your portfolio. Your portfolio will incrementally get better day by day. The softwares will change. AI will start to be able to be a tool that will help make your portfolio a lot more robust. But the soft skill of being able to advocate for yourself and be able to introduce yourself and kind of show your value and how your value works in an organization and a company, that was probably the greatest lesson today, and then we'll build on the other pieces of it. I think somebody was raising their hand really quickly. Okay, I'm going to pause there. Okay, so that now we've talked about that, we're going to segue into another part that's really, really important. If everyone Googles HUMA, H-U-M-A, and Dallas, what typically will happen is, even though there's a lot more HUMAs, I'm not the only HUMA in all. Okay, there's Candida. I'm not the only HUMA in Dallas. I'm definitely not the only HUMA in America, but you will see me rank pretty high because I have been SEO optimizing my brand. Everything. So one of the ways that you do that is LinkedIn. So the next assignment for you as part of your portfolio building workshop, this is really, really important, is go in. If you don't have a LinkedIn account, let's start building your future state of yourself. Build out that UX designer portfolio, UX designer presence on LinkedIn. Start branding yourself as a UX designer. Start to keyword optimize yourself so that you will rank. Okay, it takes about 6 months for SEO optimization to take place. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to just show my cards. Y'all are going to see my portfolio. Okay, and I'm going to tell you exactly how I did it and why it's structured that way. Okay, and I'm a senior professional. I'm associate director here at our company. So, it works. It works. It's a way to get a job in the future. So I'm just sharing what worked for me and what works and how I coach people out there. All right. So very quickly, I'm going to just show you. Let's see, window. We're going to go to HUMA Dallas. And so I'm going to show you. So right over here, what you see is I just did a search for HUMA Dallas, and then HUMA Wadud, CSM, that's Scrum, Certified Scrum Master, and I ranked at the very top. And I didn't do an ad or anything like that, but that's the power of SEO optimization. So we're going to go ahead and, can you see this next thing that says HMW?
Yep.
Okay, everybody can see that. Does anybody know what HMW is? It's not just my initials. Anyone? Okay. Does anybody know what design thinking is? I see Pallavi. You know what design, does anybody know who IDEO is? Okay, so design thinking is a methodology, it's a problem-solving framework. Understand, ideate, design, prototype, and test. That's the formula. Other different takes on that methodology kind of augment that process a little bit, but that's essentially the process of design thinking. And it's one of the actual methodologies that UX designers use. And so one of the questions that we use when we're conducting that, we're actually participating and solving problems through that methodology, is you arrive at a how might we statement. This was actually formalized by IDEO in Silicon Valley in the 90s, so that they use how might we. And so when we abbreviate that question, we abbreviate as HMW. Okay, so HUMA saw an opportunity. And I wasn't born, on this earth with the last name of Wadud. My last name was Ghazi. And so I saw an opportunity. I was like, okay, this is what I do. So that was an intentional branding movement. So number one, please think about how you can brand yourself. So so that goes hand in hand with what I do for a living. It will make you unforgettable. There is a famous UX practitioner named Sarah Dooley. Does anybody know Sarah Dooley? Okay. Google Sarah Dooley, Dooley, and I'll tell you, she has the most incredible curly hair. It is like ringlets all the way out to here, and that's her signature. There is no way that you will mistake anyone. It's just like, oh, that UX thought leader lady out in Boston with the curly hair. So everyone will say Sarah Dooley. She won't change her hair because that's part of her signature. Okay? Everyone following along? All right, so I happen to rank again. Well, actually, no, that's cheating. That's how might we? So those are my initials, and then I bought the domain .work. So it actually means something. How might we .work? So that's part of my branding as well. So we're gonna go, and I built this on Squarespace. So that's a pretty low cost way of setting up a portfolio. And so I'm talking about what I do. I'm leaning with the strong punches. UX strategist, design thinker, problem solver, women in tech leader. Now you could say that, hey, you didn't put UI, UX or anything like that. That's because I am doing something a little bit different. I'm positioning myself as a leader. So you want to go ahead and state exactly what you are so that it will populate from an SEO standpoint. And also it will be clear to the hiring partner what you're trying to do. Any questions so far? I'm going to go check the chat, or can somebody assist me with the chat?
We're good so far. We don't have anything.
Okay, fantastic.
I do have a question real quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Earlier you said, or just now you said how you want to position yourself to, like, I guess the position that you want, right? Or just some kind of like brand yourself in a position that you want. What do you have any suggestions for, like, if you want to go into the consulting, like how would you want to brand yourself in that regard? The consulting in the form of like UI UX.
Awesome. So Dung, have you done any consulting yet?
No, I'm still looking into it, and it's like one of my interests, I guess.
Okay.
Like, I'm still looking into that position.
Okay, so two ways to answer that question. I'm going to give you some very practical advice. If you want to be a consultant, I would suggest starting to actually do the consulting piece. Even if you're not billing for the consulting, if you know what I mean, you're doing some nonprofit type consulting, like for a church or for some animal welfare or something, or even from a service design standpoint, if you're trying to do some kind of design optimization or even some kind of helping with their business plan or something like that, I would start walking the walk so you could talk the talk. And then suddenly it's easy to talk about because you've actually done it. That's the easiest way to get in there very quickly. Does that make sense?
So you're saying that it's better to develop the skills for it rather than just kind of brand yourself as that?
Well, if you brand yourself and then they ask you, then I'll be like, awesome, Don, come on, let's go. Let's talk about this. And then I'll ask you questions about it. And then what would your answer be at that point?
Or like my experience with it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But see, here's the thing, team. You don't have to necessarily have to get paid to be able to develop experience. Mm-hmm. Right? Even your participation, like there's somebody who was an intern at Bridgecrest who was developing her experience as a UX designer, but she was basically doing it for the student organization. So that work wasn't any less valid because she wasn't getting paid for it. She was doing work, right? So if you're consulting as a member of the student organizations, what's beautiful about student organizations is that nobody's getting paid. I mean, there's a way to monetize it and develop revenue streams from fundraising, and if that's what you have as structured. But what's really great is that everyone's grateful for you to be there. It's not that competitive because they're just happy that someone's there to help, right? So
yeah. Oh, sorry, I was gonna add on too. Like if you're looking for like how you should start figuring out how to define those roles that you want to go after, just start going through LinkedIn and start pulling job descriptions and what those requirements are, because you at least need to meet those requirements at a minimum. So if the consulting piece is really what you want to focus on and you just don't know where to start, just start looking for those job postings to see what companies are looking for, and then you can kind of start working backwards to see like, okay, there's a few nonprofits, there's student work that I can work through to help build these skills, so that way I can speak to something when I am applying for a position and when I am branding myself as a consultant in the space.
Love that.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And then also, Sam, like you just gave me a really great idea. You can use that as a checklist.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. All the things that, okay, a consultant, to be a consultant, you have to have X, Y, Z. You know, I love that idea. Thank you so much, Sam. Awesome. Any other questions or add-on before I move on? Let me know if anything's happening in the chat because I can't see. All right, so we're going to move. So this is my intro. This is my positioning. And I even go as far to explain kind of like that was very intentional and how I'm weaving it in. And these are my actual projects. So some of these are kind of top secret, but it's okay. I've scrubbed a lot of these types of things. That's something that you need to take into consideration, that if something's protected by NDI, you have to make sure that you anonymize and you scrub any kind of sensitive data, because that type of information is typically information that, you know, is belongs to your company. And when you're a student, though, it's a lot easier because you don't have to worry about scrubbing any of that information. So the work for your portfolio, case studies is you know, I only have a very small menu. So you have case studies and you have the way to contact me, and that's pretty much it. So we're actually on the page where we actually jump into the actual work. And so right over here, so this is ancient now, but this is actually a project that I did partnering with Xbox and JCPenney when I worked there. I talked, you set up, what you want to do is, let's back up. We want to have at least 5 projects. And this is something that they teach you in design school. Your portfolio is only as strong as your weakest project. Okay, so you want to make sure that your best work is up there. Ideally, you want to have 5. In my experience, you could look at 3. You could try to have 3. It might be a little bit light, but I think 5 is a pretty solid number. What about your mileage may vary, and then I'll just ask Sam, like, what has been your experience with that?
With the number of case studies, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do agree with the 5 rule. I think that's super important. I think like the most important thing, and you're gonna see this in every single UX article that's out there, is like this should be focusing around your favorite work, and it should be in line with the role that you're applying for. So when you think about how you're applying for a job and you tailor your resume to fit that job that you're applying for, your portfolio is an extension of your resume. So if it's all over the place and there's a ton of different things happening and there's a million different projects to go through, a hiring manager is going to see that and be like, I don't even know where to start. And it's usually just going to get closed out and they'll move on to the next one. So you want to be really, really strategic about like what you're showcasing here. Even if you don't have 5 projects, I would almost just like have 2 or 3 really amazing pieces there that are showing what you're capable of doing, and that in combination with your resume and your bio and what you're passionate about will really just like capture the attention of hiring managers. Miriam?
Yes, I have a question. I'm just wondering, for portfolio, do you need only like the prototype section or the final version? Because you said in the UX you need to like problem solving, design thinking process. So I'm just wondering, do you need both?
Showing that process is so important. UI is there's a lot of UI designers that are out there, but if you talk to the majority of them that are working in the industry today, they have to do a lot of research, a lot of testing, a lot of stakeholder interviews, everything in order to get to that final product. So if you're only showing the visual pieces of the portfolio and not the process of how you got there, that's a huge miss. So you want to show everything. I think the main thing is like how you make that information easier to digest. So if you have a super long case study, the reality of it, and I think like this is kind of like the difference between academia and just like the business world and how we go through the process. If I'm hiring for a UX designer, I get dozens of portfolios and resumes sent my direction, and I maybe have 30 minutes to look through some of the stuff. So I am going through them as quickly as possible, but I'm also distracted with other things. So I'm looking for those case studies in that portfolio that's like really calling out the key takeaways from each case study that's presented. So that way I can understand, okay, did this person clearly identify what the problem is? Can I understand like what their process was from either like bolded text within a paragraph of like, hey, here's the 3 bullet points I want you to take away from this. Here's some imagery that breaks down the key takeaways or something. Do I get to see that? And then what was your proposed solution? So really being able to kind of show that process is huge. We love to see the visuals, but it also kind of depends on like what type of job you're going for. If you're going for a startup, you may have a little bit more flexibility with how you get to design something. Whereas if you come into a large corporation like ours, we have brand guidelines that are already in place. So you're picking up a piece of like what's already been managed. And so sometimes like the final UI piece, it's great to see like your attention to detail, but like also we're going to train you in the way that like our company operates.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I totally agree with everything Sam just said. And I'm going to try to illustrate, what she said about how you show the process. So I'm really happy that you brought that question up, Miriam. So we're going to skip, instead of going for the Xbox one, I'm going to go into JCPenney homepage design. And so that's one soup to nuts execution of how you show the process. So what you do is you write a case study, and you want to talk about, the context of the actual problem that you're trying to solve, and pain points, research, how your research methodology was, A/B tests, any kind of data, generative usability testing findings, any kind of heuristics that you've done. This one actually happened to have heat maps and bounce rates. I had all this data available at my disposal. Not every project you work with what you have. It's just like a detective on the scene of a crime. You don't really know if all the evidence is going to be out there. You may just have one piece of evidence, and you kind of work with what you got, and then your hiring manager is also going to be looking at it. So what else did you do? Did you set up some contextual inquiry? Did you do any type of service safari, any type of other research protocols, diary studies, etc.? Depending on what the problem was, and every problem is different. It's not just a textbook type of execution. So this is like the only one that has actually eye tracking studies with heat maps. I've never had access to that after the fact, and I work with other partners to provide that for me. These are our personas. We had our personas and how they map. And so we had our primary persona and secondary persona. I was taught by, I'm actually I really adhere to the Alan Cooper's methodology for user experience. I think some of y'all may know him. He sold his practice. He's the author of a book called About Face. It's a very, very thick book. It's one of the first books on interaction design. So I studied, I did a boot camp with him for service design. It was a service design practicum in San Francisco, maybe, I don't know, feels like a decade. It's about a decade, about 8 years ago. So I learned a lot from that. And so I use a lot of his methodology. And so his approach is there's a primary persona that's 80% of the use cases, and there's a secondary persona, which is like 20% of the use cases. So, you know, sometimes projects can be so robust where you can have more and more personas. However, that gets to be very, very complicated when you're trying to solve for their user needs. Okay, so we're going to move on. Some of y'all may be familiar with customer journey mapping. So this one was completed in the actual Post-it tactile kind of workshop type of format, and then I refined it and I created it into an artifact. So we have a customer journey map over here with the sentiment vector right over here. Then there was an inventory of all the elements of what you see at different states of what the actual website looks like in what state when you're logged in. And when you're logged in, that's called authenticated view. When you're not logged in, it's not authenticated view. So for shorthand, we did hot state, cold state, and because there was an in-between jello state where it wasn't either logged in or not logged in, it was like a cookied state, so that you knew a little bit about the customer and you were able to design an experience. So basically what this means is that the website behaves differently at different states of logged in authentication. Okay, so this is an inventory of elements, so we knew what we had to design. This is the click-through. So through IBM Core Metrics, this is an analytics tool. There's other analytics tools that we use. There's Google Analytics. Some of y'all may be familiar. And so this actually shows where the actual click-through works. I know that, Sam, y'all use Full Story, right?
We do, yeah.
We at Bridgecrest and also thank you to Sam's team. We get to use Full Story, which is a competitor to IBM Core Metrics, and it's so much better. And you can actually see video clips of people's cursors moving on the screen, and you're actually seeing actual sessions of people visiting your site, and it's amazing. And you're just watching them. You're like, no, don't go there. You went there. Why'd you do that? And so you have to go figure out why they did that. And
it's actually a great way for us to identify bugs too. I don't know, Huma, if you get that a lot on your team, but we find so many website bugs that we have to go in and fix from using a tool like that. So it's really fun.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much. I'm gonna call you and ask you about that.
Yeah.
Yes. Awesome. Okay, so conducting our research. So after you conduct the research, understand and then you empathize and then you define. It's part of the design thinking methodology. When you define, you're establishing goals. Okay, please, for the rest of your life, if you're going to do this for your career, always remember you get what you measure. Get what you measure. So if they say, I'm going to you know, like this is a different story, like altogether has nothing to do with UX, but I'm making this up as we go, so it might fall apart. But it's like, I'm going to measure how many kids are going to eat, you know, candy. And so, you know, we could kind of hack the system by just giving kids out a lot of candy, and your candy may actually not be good candy, but you're just like giving it for free. And then you give toys. And so it's like, oh, you're measuring how many pieces of candy was given out. That's actually not an indicator that your candy is any good. Right? That's get what you measure. Okay, always remember that, because what you measure determines what you design. And if you're not measuring the right thing, you could be designing something and hitting a target that's actually getting away from the whole point of the design, if that makes sense. And we can talk a little bit about that. You can hit me up on LinkedIn and I can tell you a bit about that. But that's why business goals, user goals are very important. So business goals are very important because business has to keep its doors open, right? User goals are very important because if you don't get into the value stream of your customer, your user, then who cares? Like, customers aren't going to come to your company if you're not doing something that's relevant to them. So basically what we target is the intersection of both of those things, business goals and user goals. That's where we operate. And we have to, you know, we do user-centric design, human-centered design. However, if we're not considering the business, then nobody's going to eat, you know, like the business won't stay open. And then it's not, you know, it's not going to, you know, be an effective solution. you know? So we have to make sure that the business is successful and the user is successful as well. All right, then we have design goals, you know, things that what we will stand for. Are we going to do dark UX patterns? I don't know if y'all know about that. Dark UX patterns, those are called anti-patterns, where you're actually trying to manipulate the user. There's actually a Reddit called insert not nice word UX. It's really funny. Go check it out. But it's like a not nice word, and it's like it's not that bad of a word, but it's like basically I'm gonna just change, like just say it's like jerk UX. And you go to that Reddit, and they basically talk about all the UX patterns that are out there that are like leading people astray. And so basically what we do at our company, Drive Time and Bridgecrest and Silver Rock, is that we try to get as far, like we are like that is our mission in life, to like kibosh anything that remotely resembles that. And like we want to rid the world of all those types of things. You want to make sure that the experience is successful and helpful as possible to our customers as possible. Right? So low fidelity wireframes and paper prototyping. This is just we all know what they look like, so this is just a screenshot of that. High fidelity wireframes, these are just kind of like wires, and I just added a few icons in there just so that they're not distracting. You can actually use grayscale photos as well. But at wireframe stage, you're looking at the mechanics of your site. You're not really looking at the actual physical, tangible pieces of your site. Let me back up. Actual design elements of your site, like shades and colors. You're actually looking at the actual structure, the information architecture, the mechanics of it. Now we're getting into homepage modules, and the breakdown of each section. So this is product display page, pricing construct, display, and then the ratings and review, add to cart button. And we talk about how all those things work together. And then after we did a few different versions of this, what I could have done was talk about how we prototyped and test. I think I do talk about that in here, and how we went about it. But basically, this is the result. And so when you are working as a senior practitioner, what they want to see is the actual results. Like, what did you do? Nobody's really interested. Did you make a really nice design? They want to see how you solved a problem and how you moved the needle for a company. So overall bounce rate was 11%. Bounce means like you're coming to a site and you're leaving. We improved by 300 basis points, or 22%. So basically, translation, what that means is we reduced people from leaving the site by 22%. So that's awesome. That's almost like 1 out of 4 people who are going away, like 4 people that were going, bye, I don't want to be here. We're like, no, you come back. So that's awesome. So we help make closer to 5 people. So 1 out of 5 people, they're going away. We're like, hey, stay longer, do some shopping. So that's kind of like where we were. And then those metrics were different on different areas. So that's a full, really robust case study. Now, some people might think, oh, I'm just going to show this at the end, the actual finished design. Yeah, but how did you get there? They want to see, at the very end, that's the great finished piece, but there's a whole Dribble site full of beautiful interfaces. Nobody knows how you were able to bob and weave and navigate that with what all the things that the business partners were asking, what all the things that you needed to do for the customer, and how many versions and iterations, and how you actually showed your versions to other customers and tested. Okay, so any questions so far?
I have a question.
Yeah. Oh, no.
So someone who kind of does a lot of projects like in the make-believe world so far, how do you like find out your metrics like that? Or how do you get projects in the real world where you could be like, oh, I improved site traffic by, whatever %?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what you want to do is, okay, so when you say make-believe projects, are we talking about student work?
Yeah, so what I'm doing right now is Plano, the city I live in, has a horrible library website. I was like, hey, professor, I want to do a redesign of this website. and make it, more aesthetic, more user-friendly, just easier to navigate.
Mm.
That's what I mean by make-believe. And this would never like show up on Plano's end. It's just kind of, I guess, demonstrating my skills.
I love that.
Does that make sense?
Yes. You actually, for any project you're working on, whether it is your original work, so your student work, or if you take a real life concept and you've identified a problem and you want to make it better, we live in a social media world. And so there are so many opportunities for you to survey, to start a Reddit thread, to interact with potential users to get some of that information back. So it may not be directly related to the tool on where you know exactly where they started from, but based on your research and the conversations you have with potential users, you have the opportunity to kind of pull those data points from that conversation and kind of say, like, this is why this work is important. So it doesn't necessarily always have to be a specific percentage, because you can't build that off of what you don't know and what you don't have access to. But those conversations that you can have and the way that you could collect some particular data is, there's so many unlimited possibilities on how you can kind of pull that together. So I wouldn't get too hung up on a percentage or a specific dollar amount or something like that. Like, you can kind of tie that back into like whatever your feedback is.
All right, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Alyssa, did you come on? Did you want to say something? All right. So,
Hello. Yes, I did have a question.
okay, awesome.
So I know someone mentioned earlier about like consulting work and things like that. And I do think it's a great idea, like you were saying, that it's better to just start doing work, even if it is for like nonprofit and things like that, just to have that opportunity to have something to put towards your portfolio. As far as like, there's a lot of things online that are like consulting, like Fiverr, things like that. I was kind of curious of if you've had experience with any of those, if you would recommend any of them over another, as far as like starting in consulting online.
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know if I have like a specific starting point, but I started my career in consulting, and then kind of moved out from it. But I've always been in more than just UX. I've also been in all of the marketing space. If you're looking for what I typically see for like entry level people or somebody who is new to consulting specifically and like wanting to get involved, the larger consulting firms are easier to get that starting point because they have full teams that are built out. So like Deloitte, Accenture, North Highland is another one. Anybody that has like a customer experience realm will have UX tied to it if you're looking for company names that go out. I'm not sure if that totally answers your question, but there's a bunch of like online, or if you want to get really specific into UX specifically, I don't know some of the smaller businesses there, but if you're looking just to get involved in the consulting world, like the bigger ones are usually better.
That is helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
If you have time, do you mind dropping a few of those names in the chat?
Sure.
That way we can have them.
Yep.
I dropped a couple: Boston Consulting Group, McKinsey, Deloitte, North
Those are the big ones.
Yeah, there's like the big ones. And Sapient, no, does Deloitte own Sapient Nitro? I think so.
I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah.
Yeah. They all kind of they kind of merge together after a while. So so yeah, and there's also Photon. A good friend of mine is creative director at Photon. There's also Tata Consulting. Some of these are kind of Indian owned, and so they have a lot of people who are a lot of clients just everywhere in the country. They're not just tied to a specific geography, and maybe over the entire world. So that's really cool. So there's Tata Consulting. What was it? Who owns Photon? There's a few. There's one that I'm like trying to remember, but I can't remember. But yeah, so that those are some that we can think of off the top of our head. But you don't have to be you don't have to necessarily work for one of those consultings. You can start your own. You see people like that on LinkedIn all the time. You're already consulting. You know, you're working for yourself. You're a consultant.
I think a big piece too is one thing that I kind of feel like I miss out on when I am reviewing portfolios of somebody who is newer to the industry is like I love to see a nice balance of your original work versus stuff that already exists. So I think like there's this misconception on when you're going through these programs that you always have to design something new. But the reality of it is there are so many websites and apps that are out there right now, and there's so many like user pain points. I am so much more interested on how somebody takes in one of those pain points from, let's say, Netflix, for an example. You may be able to do a case study of your own instead of, you might have to remove some of the branding or something like that, but it's taking the initiative to identify like a known pain point within the streaming service and how you would go about fixing that issue. Because it's like, I've worked with so many students in the past where they think like, well, the solution is just to create something completely new. And it's like, nope, let's see what we can do with the actual thing. And that really helps, especially if you're applying to some type of company, a streaming service, or Uber or Lyft or something like that. The first question that they're usually going to ask you is like, have you looked at our website? And I know it's a common question in our interview process. What would you change? And so when you're really thinking about all of those experiences that are already out there and people are interacting with them all day, every day, taking that in and tying that into your work, in my opinion, has a lot more meaning than creating something completely from scratch. Yes, we want to see the process, but you can also do the process for something that already exists. You're just saying like, there's a clearly known problem. So let's go ahead and like see what we could do to make this 10 times better. So I want to call that out because I do think like that's a really like standout opportunity for when you're starting to apply for different roles is like, how are you taking your experience and applying it to everyday life? So that was something that is a major takeaway for me and has always been since I got deeper into UX.
One thing are there any other additional follow-up questions for Sam on that?
I have one.
Yeah.
Hi. So I wanted to know that Huma just showed her portfolio, and there are so many things which can be technical also, like heat maps and high fidelity or low fidelity prototypes. So for somebody who is new and who doesn't have actual work or who hasn't worked on a real website yet, then what should be they putting in their portfolio, and how credible it would be if these things are not there? What would interest you if it's an entry level, or even like I'm experienced but I'm new to this site, so what would make me a good candidate? If what should be there in my portfolio?
Yeah. I would say, so number one, you can use just Google to kind of search like for design challenges. That could be a number one. There's a lot of great tools, and I could probably pull some together and share them with the group of where you can get like every day it's a new design challenge to get you
Okay.
thinking about all of those different steps that you need to take. So that could be like your first step, just to like get familiar with the process and show like, hey, here's some of my research. This is how I've identified a problem. And then going back to, if you don't have something specific from a class or something like that, start thinking about an app that you use every single day and what frustrates you about it, and start the work there. You can create these projects so easily yourself. You don't need somebody to say like you need to do XYZ. It's more about showing your skill set, and then it produces a conversation. So that's just something that you also need to like kind of clearly call out. When you're applying, you're just like, I needed to build up my case studies, my portfolio. I haven't had official work, or if you're also like working in an industry on where they're not allowing you to share that with hiring managers, like there's additional things you can do, or you can kind of strip down the branding, as Huma said before. But there's so much that you can add in that doesn't necessarily need to come from a specific person saying you need to do this case study. Just think about like what irks you as you're going through your phone, as you're going through a website. Just start making note of that. Start thinking about how you can improve that experience.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna build on Sam's what she said, and she said she's pulling together some reference materials. So here's one that can kind of kick it off. Here's so like I mentioned Alan Cooper earlier, who's like a major thought leader, somebody who has a lot of credibility. Jared Spool, Jacob Nielsen, Don Norman of the Nielsen Norman Group. I think they just retired. I think there's a CEO now that they've announced. But if y'all aren't familiar with Nielsen Norman Group, basically they're kind of a good gold standard of who to look at and model. So here's a wonderful article on that's available, and Samantha's sharing the designer size. I love that. I'm going to save that for myself. That looks amazing. Yeah. So right over here, I'll share my screen very quickly. And I love how, Sam and I, we hadn't really shared what our opinions were on the matter, but it's kind of interesting that we were thinking the same way about it, that we do look for the 3 to 5 portfolio examples. This article is really great. This is what I dropped in the chat, what the hiring managers are looking for, and then kind of like how to think about the problems and the hypothesis and your proposed solutions. And so right over here, I'm going to skip ahead. Some of this is, so this is the wireframing and things like that. So one of the things that we should all be able to do, we should all be able to do a customer journey map. Okay. That's pretty standard. We should all be able to have enough data points available to conduct a customer journey map, just from an observational study. So you would create a persona, or you would actually create a persona as a product of an empathy map exercise, and then take that persona, walk them through a customer journey map. And you're able to see the journey, and you'll see the pain points and the opportunities for that. And then what you'd be able to come up with your design options. And then you could do something called like Starbucks testing or guerrilla testing, where you take it to maybe the coffee shop over there at UTD or something like that, and you ask for volunteers. And so Nielsen Norman could probably talk about, how many that you would want to survey, and have them test your design, paper prototype or clickable prototype, done in Figma, etc. You want to have at minimum 5 to hit critical mass. Otherwise, you can't really see a pattern. After 5, they say it's not, for early iteration, and it's not scientific, but it tells you enough to know to make a decision to move forward, right? So you also observe, you observe what they're doing, and you don't want to, and there's ways on the site that kind of explain how. This is a great wealth of information, the Nielsen Norman site. It will teach you how to ask questions from your users. You want to make sure that you're not leading them and you're observing what they're doing, because users say things differently than what they actually do. So you want to observe them. So those are 2 things that everybody should be able to do. As a student, you should be, or even somebody who's segueing or parlaying their experience and segueing into this new industry, customer journey maps, and then also being able to prototype and test. And wireframe, that's another thing. That's a lower fidelity version of an actual refined UI design. And there's also when you're doing design exercises, sometimes they provide you a prompt. They give you the metrics that you're measuring. So I don't know if that's what they provide in this site, Sam. But there's also, like, when you go, another part of the actual interview process, and I don't know if this is still kind of a fashionable thing. Sam, do y'all do design tests on your side?
We do, they're just not business related. So that's actually like a really important call out. During the interview process, it is very, very important to be able to show like your design thinking. In most cases, you're not always going to come up with a solution. We're actually paying more attention to how you approach a problem and how you start thinking about it, rather than an end all be all solution for a problem that we present in a design challenge. Be super cautious about the companies that ask you to do a design challenge related to their business. In some states, that is actually illegal because it is like free work. And it's a way for them to get around on where, like, you want to show your self-worth. You understand that you need to go through the interview process and you need to show your skill set, but also, like, you should not be doing heavy workloads for free. So I want to like specifically call that out, but we will always come up with like a creative design challenge of like something that's common within art industry or something, and see how a person goes about it. But we will never ask you to do something related to drivetime.com or something like that.
Love that. That's great. Such a great call out. Thank you,
Yeah.
Sam. I thought I heard somebody come off mute. Any other questions? Looking at them at the chat. Any other specific pinpoint questions that we haven't covered that maybe have random questions?
Hello, I have one more question.
Yeah.
What is it? I know that like for this industry, it's a very like trendy, very like fast-paced industry. You know, like where like new ideas come and goes. So I just want to ask you guys if there's any media that you use to like kind of catch up or like, you know, stay relevant with the times. So like any YouTube channel, any like articles or podcasts that you guys listen to, just to kind of see like how the industry is evolving.
I can start to answer that, but I don't want to. I see that, Sam, you're off mute. Did you want to start with that?
No, go for it.
Okay.
Go for it.
Okay, I am very nervous about YouTube sometimes. Sometimes YouTube's good, but think about how you get what you measure. YouTube, basically, if you have long format videos and then you monetize, you hit like the number of subscribers, and then you start sticking ads in the middle and you're talking about a lot of stuff. And sometimes they're making content for the sake of content for content's sake. Maybe they're not even practitioners. I don't know how, there's a lot of information. Anybody with a phone, if you're not careful, you could be following somebody who may not actually have real world applicable experience. So YouTube is good for some things. It's just difficult to know if you have the right information, because none of that information is there's no governance around some of that information. Like they say in school or junior high or high school, they say never go to Wikipedia as a reference for your paper, because anybody can go and just type something up on Wikipedia, and then it's like, hey, the sky's purple. And it's like, is it? It is on Wikipedia. That's my reference. So it's like one of those types of things. There's no governance necessarily on YouTube. And so at least, and so some of the information there is it's great to help you consume. TikToks are kind of the same way. They're short format, but still no governance there. So no one's going to say who when you name drop somebody. No one's going to ever say who when you say Nielsen Norman Group. There's nobody's ever going to say what. Everybody knows I mean, they're like our like not overlords, but I'm trying to avoid blaspheming, but like they're kind of like our godlike beings in our industry. They're somebody an entity who we really, really respect and admire, and no one's ever going to say, what? That was on there? They're never, that information's very credible. And a lot of people, myself included, are certified. So I've got the management certification from there. And so that's another thing that you might want to look into. They have boot camps and certifications as well. It's a little bit of an investment. So if you can have a company that you're, maybe doing some side work for, and if you're parlaying yourself into a user experience career, you can maybe have them help you just take a few of the courses if you're trying to grow into a role over there. I've seen that done before. Somebody who was a designer was able to cover some of her research type courses. That's an option as well. So my answer is Nielsen Norman Group on that.
Yep. We'll let Miriam ask the question, and then I'll add some additional stuff too.
Yes, I have a question. I'm just wondering, as a hiring manager, are you just looking for, or are you interested to see the new topic, like using the pain point and answer the question and problem solving, or are you looking for just redesign the website or application? Which one? And if just you are looking for the like new topic like AI, would you give us some like recommended topic that you are looking for?
So
did you want to answer?
Yeah, so the question, I'm just going to restate the question so I understand. So what type of trending topics is kind of like interesting and maybe some, I'm even thinking competitive advantage you're thinking. So everybody is saying AI and it's so new. And unless you're like I don't even know who does the modeling or, I wouldn't even just stay away from AI. Don't even touch it. It's almost kind of like a joke now. It's kind of don't. I leave it for those AI people because they're using it as like an opportunity to kind of ride that wave. So definitely no one's looking for AI. Everyone's looking for actual UX practice work, classic practice work. So that's important, this methodology. They're looking for people who actually can do this role, and they're not necessarily looking for what's buzzworthy right now. So that's kind of makes your life a lot easier. Yep. I'm going to answer the door real quick. Let Sam try to take a stab at that question. If maybe she might have a different point of view.
I'm in complete agreement. AI is messy. And it's definitely one of those things. It's cool to kind of see some of the things that come out of it, right? Like, but when you're doing your everyday job, like the more companies that end up using AI, the more similar the output ends up being. So you're kind of taking away that originality and the uniqueness that comes from it. And so we're very big on, no, let's do the work. Let's make sure we are exploring all different options and proposing something based on our research. And then, 100% like I care more about the problem, how you've dissected the problem, how you've done the research, and how you're proposing a solution. So that's very much in my realm, but there's always going to be people who have a different view on it. It's just my preference and what I look for just because of how our company operates. Like I said earlier, we already have a bunch of like design guidelines in place and stuff. And so ours is very much of like, how can we continue to improve the user experience on our site? So we do quite a bit of, we're not getting a lot of clicks on this one button. How else can we evolve this to like increase lead to sale or something like that? So could be very small projects like that, or something completely big on, we want to redesign our homepage. We need to come up with at least 10 different variations that we're planning to test to see what's best for the user, to get them to convert to a lead. So we just have different approaches depending on where you're at in the industry, what type of company you work for, and all the fun stuff.
I love it. Did you have any additional questions in regards to that, Marianne?
No, thank you. Thank you for answer.
It looks like Amna dropped a comment in the chat, and it says, since most jobs require 2 or 3 years of experience, will my student works projects be considered experience? I say yes. You've done the work, you go through the process, you're thinking about something, you've gotten a design challenge, or you've thought about a real life experience, or a business that you've targeted as far as there's some true pain points and we want to work towards it. I do see that as work. I think it's different for everybody. So I do see it as work and that you have experience.
Yeah, I agree. I will say that I mean, we're two leaders in the industry, so sometimes, you know, there's a difference of opinion on that. Some people may need somebody who's a little bit more like has had actual experience in the workplace. So we're open to that, but we also look at individuals who have interned with us. So that's a pro to try to get an internship as best as you can, because that internships aren't really looked at as internships. They're looked at as kind of like real work experience. It's like you've actually, you know, you're actually at a company doing work. So that actually is kind of a in between student work and actual first year design work.
Love that.
Any other questions? We're coming up a little bit close on time, so I just want to be respectful for anyone. If you have, I know that we're coming up. So Sam's in Arizona, so the time is around noon. So we've got a really nice presence here on the call where we have like people from different states calling in. So it's very, very awesome. So just letting you know if there's anything that we're coming up on time and you might have some commitments, because this was a really nice opportunity to connect with you for a couple of hours like this. So any other questions? Anything you would like to know in regards to the portfolio building process that you might want to just have a little bit of like kind of candid conversation about?
Can I go and ask a question?
Yeah.
So you said you built your portfolio with Squarespace. Is that like, can you do that with website builders, or is it better to like ground up, learn HTML, CSS, and create a portfolio that way?
No, don't do that. Don't do that, because
Okay.
you might as well become a front-end engineer.
Yeah.
Don't do that. That's a different job. Now, 10 years ago, there was a debate. There was a ferocious debate about it. It was called the UX unicorn debate. It's like a designer who can code, but do you really want a designer who's like it's a master of trades, jack of none? There is enough work in UX, especially with the research part, for a full-time job. Like there's a completely different reporting structure if you can do front-end engineering and software development. HTML, CSS. That's nice. That makes you more dangerous. They'll probably put you on a style guide to work on, right, Sam? Style guides are basically the little components, the building blocks of how we do our UI. And it's really good to have that. You can work a lot closer to your front-end engineer if you have that knowledge. But no, don't do that. That is going to make your life much harder. Squarespace is a WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get, website builder, okay? And so is Webflow, so is Wix, so is like Adobe something that Adobe has, right?
Adobe Portfolio. There's WordPress.
Yeah. WordPress is a little bit more tricked out. You have to kind of know what you're doing. I don't know. I don't even know WordPress. I like to go play around with that.
Yeah, that's like my least favorite of all of it.
There's so many options now. There's like Carbon. there's Behance. There's Behance as well. You can use
Yep.
Behance. It does present better when you have your own site than being on one of those kind of aggregate, marketplace type things where you're on there. Sometimes people want to see your dribble as well, but that's kind of a nice to have. I don't necessarily ask to see anybody's dribble.
I usually like recommend it. Dribble and Behance have those as like an added piece onto your portfolio. So like link your portfolio out to those that contains all of your work. So that way you still have some area on where if a hiring manager is interested in seeing every single thing that you do, they have another space to go and take a look at that. And then Dribble's really good of like if you are wanting to get a little bit more into like interaction design or something like that, you can upload like smaller pieces of a project there and then get some feedback from just all of the users that are clicking through. So it's definitely it's a nice to have, as Huma said, but I don't know if I would like say those as like your core portfolio. Benjamin?
What if one of the works that we try to post is just a work in progress? Do you think that still would be good, even if it looks like if it's not completed yet?
Yeah, I don't see as long as it's clearly communicated that it's a work in progress, I think that's good. And maybe you take a different approach instead of going into detail on your process until it's finished. Maybe you just do like more focused around like the high level overview of what the problem is and like what your plan is to kind of work through the process instead of cutting off in the middle of research and then people are kind of like, what else is there? So maybe dial it back a little bit, but just say like more information is coming soon.
Okay, thanks.
Here's a way that you can market that. You could say, oh, I was tapped to be the researcher on this project. You could say there's actual whole jobs that are like UX research, and that's a different human. That's a whole nother person. So you could say I was brought in as a researcher, but then they're going to ask you for a lot more robust researcher. So that's the only dicey thing about that.
1:54 p.m.
Sorry, my phone is talking. It wants to be included into this meeting. So there's that, and then what was the other thing? Yes, work in progress is true story. Most work is work in process, right? At no point in time does anybody say, Huma, the app is done. Go home. No, there's not, no. That never happens. It's not going to be like the app is done. There's no end to the app. There's no end to the universe. Like it's ever expanding. The app is always going. So a lot of projects are continuous projects. Like they did a HubSpot redesign, and I saw their case study, and it was somebody who was a very senior practitioner. He's like, this is the process. This is where we are at this point in time on that case study. Pallavi, you have a question?
Yes, I have. So these days they are using ATS a lot when you're applying the applicant softwares where they select your resumes through it and not an actual person looking at your resume. So in case of UX, you will actually have to go and see what their work is, what their design is. So is it ATS is still ATS is used in your company or specifically in UX field also, or I mean, because when we apply, you have to see that you are using the words which have been used when the job was posted, basically the ATS concept. So should we take care of that also when we are applying for UX job? That's what I'm asking.
So so A80s or Adobe Type System, which concept?
No,
The applicant tracking system.
yeah.
Applicant tracking system.
Yes.
So the actual
The ADS. Yeah, okay. I know what you're talking about. there's specific tools, and I need to find what they're called, but you can send your resume through these tools to scan and compare them against jobs that you're applying for. And they'll tell you if your resume is strong enough or not. So that way you can kind of tweak it. My other approach when it comes to the application process is you almost want to write the job description in reverse. So you should be hitting those keywords, the key pieces that are really sticking out on the job description. There should be something related back from your experience to how it ties into what they need. But let me see if I can find what those tools are to scan for the ADS bots.
Okay.
Well, y'all, Sam what she just said was worth this whole time. Like, well, I didn't even know that was a thing. Thank you so much for that piece of information. That's something that, I mean, I've been in this industry for 21 years. I didn't even know you could do that. That's incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's happening. It's happening very frequently, and almost every company is using that because they're getting for one job, they're getting 200, 500 applicants, and they're not able to read all the resumes, and ultimately they're using this to get students shortlisted. And
I see that Candida is providing some resources as well.
thank
Awesome.
you.
Well, Candida, it looks like we're at time. I'll hand it back over to you to kind of close us out.
I just want to thank you all so much for being here. I appreciate everything. I was speaking over like chat with Alonzo, just telling him know that you all are providing perfect advice when it comes to portfolios, networking, building those professional relationships. Again, even thinking about the piece of, it's not always about what you know, but like who you know as well. So, and then including interpersonal soft skills, those are very, very important. We always get that feedback from employers that that's what they're looking for in students, not only the technical skills that you all have, but again, those skills when it comes to communicating or, problem solving or even like doing that specific research again. So I do appreciate all of your advice for our students today. And I do want to thank all of our students for attending this event. It was really great. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
This
you.
was fun.
This was an honor. Thank you so much.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend,
you.
everybody.
Have a great
Thank you.
weekend.
Thank you very much.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
Thank you.